Is your storage filled to the brim with wither skeleton skulls? Does placing soul sand feel a bit soul-crushing? My name is Techman88 and I've got a solution to your problems. For just 2 easy payments of soul sand, you can freely place and summon withers as fast as you want. Anyway, enough of that act. This is just a really easy way to summon a bunch of withers in one place, up to 12 withers I think, and it's pretty simple. I searched YouTube for something like this, but I couldn't find anything that really satisfied what I wanted to do and was really simple, so I invented one. And I'm sure some other people have much better systems, like RaiseWorks. He showed a system where you can basically do this fully automatically, but you're not going to have so many wither skeleton skulls that most of the time, unless you're on a really crazy server. So the way this works is you just sit on this block, and the first thing you do is you place the 3 soul sand for this part of the formation, and then the last part is these pistons are going to push around the 4th piece behind. So yeah, you place 3 like this. This is within the reach of survival, which is a little bit shorter than creative. And then the 4th one, it gets detected by this observer and goes through some logic, and that pushes that around, and also triggers the dispensers over here with wither skeleton skulls in them. So yeah, just placing soul sand there pushes it around, and when you get the soul sand to this point, you can just sit here and hold down the right mouse button and summon about 12, like 11 or 12. And I'm now in survival mode, and this is actually going to do a lot of damage to me. Actually, I'm not. Yeah, so you don't want to stand too close when these are summoning in, because there's going to be 12 that explode. Then they'll start doing the block breaking ability, which is why there's a limit if you do it like this, because they'll start block breaking, and I don't think there's a really good way to predict or get them all synced up so that you can successfully summon as many as you want. There might be. I tried it, but I didn't. I got tired of trying to figure that out, the timings. And the sword I'm using is Sweeping Edge 3 and Smite 5, and those actually work together. One important note about how this works, it is dependent on player block placement. So like if you have a pretty laggy server, you might have to adjust a couple timings. And I found this seems to work, tested with Carpet Mod. So like if you have a single player world, you should be fine just like this. I'll demonstrate real quick. Yeah, actually, yeah, I'm in so my tick rate is only 10, so I'm simulating a pretty laggy server right now. So now if I adjust these to a bit longer timings, then it's going to work just fine. And another thing just to look at right here is that I'm actually aiming at the piston head, so that when that's extended, I'm not trying to place blocks in the background. Actually, it did fail right there, but I found it's pretty reliable. Unfortunately, not 100% reliable, but I don't think this is a big deal. And there's actually a benefit on servers, on a laggy server like this, is that you can actually summon more of them. So I'll just kill them right now. Okay, that was only 12, but I've gotten up to 16. Now I set my server tick rate back to 20 TPS, so this should work just fine, just with the original setup, with the shorter timings. And like if you have a fast block placer, that could also be an issue. The issue is actually spamming this thing right here, the observer. Like that's the major problem, because the observer reads this piston head moving back and forth, and one of the, or it's not hard, but it's one of the main things to be important, be concerned about is the spam protection. So that's why I have this sand right here, the falling sand. That's you see that it pulses up twice, but only one pulse comes out of the other side. This is a monostable, just with sand, and this isn't a sticky piston, it's a regular piston. So that's a pretty good way to do a system like this. But in general, I would not try and rely on observers that have to read a piston, because it just leads to issues like this. And the redstone is so simple, I'm not even going to have a world download because it's just that simple. I have a couple obsidian blocks around here just to stop the soul sand from pushing out the blocks. But that's about it. That's pretty much all I can remember. Now, my original idea with this was a bit more complicated. I wanted to try and sync up the withers so that they all would do the block breaking at the same time. Like they all have the same 12-second where they summon in and they don't do anything, but then they regularly do damage, and I'll show you in a second once they finish summoning in and finish exploding. Bunch are still powering up and stuff. And yeah, that one just finished. Now I can place blocks here, and you can see that they get damaged at regular intervals. You can see the particles come off and kind of hear it. I'll turn up the sound a little bit. Yeah, so you can see that block is placing at regular intervals, and there's quite a window where nothing is getting broken. So in theory, that should work. I'll have to kill them to show you how I show the problem. So I'll summon them again. Okay, so it gets up to some maximum count. It should be about 12 right now, and now it can't summon. You can hear these dispensers don't successfully place blocks. But now if I adjust this timing right here, I can keep summoning some more. So in theory, there's a way to get a whole lot like this by having some complicated logic to adjust the timings. I'm not going to try and explain why that works, why the synchronization works, but basically there's the 12 seconds, and then there's the damage time, and I don't know, something isn't quite synchronized. They don't have a common factor, if you know about math. So anyways, RaiseWorks has a way to do this using a chicken. He showed it in his video called the Star Extractor. I'll link that in the description. But that requires a pretty specific bedrock formation, and like in 1.13, that's going to be very hard to try and get, because the wither ceilings are different in every seed. So you have to find the location, and then you have to break some bedrock, and that's kind of a pain in the ass in 1.13. But this might still work in 1.12, but the timings just might be a lot different. Before even figuring out that this wouldn't even work, I actually designed a system to try and use it, and it's over here, and you can see it's pretty stupidly complex. I'll just turn it on right here, and the idea is that that there's a double piston extender, and it's going to push in two of these soul sand at once. So this block right here is just in there to push the soul sand in, and you can see that this kind of works to some extent. I think you can get about 6 in there with this technique, and I think it could probably go faster, but as shown earlier, this won't actually work. So at some point the blocks start breaking before it can even summon in the wither, even though I'm pushing them in as fast as possible and synced up the timers as much as possible. Like this pretty much just fails, and now I'm trapped. So yeah, the part that I thought was pretty ingenious, but it's pretty stupid when it comes down to it, is just to detect this final soul sand when it gets pushed in. This final layer, that just indicates to it that it's pushed in the 5 soul sand that it needs. And up here is just this kind of arrangement where you would be placing blocks right here. I just have it placing automatically. And it's going to try and push this way first and then push this way second. And so then that feeds into the logic that I described earlier. But the double piston extender, all that type of nonsense, it's just too much. And yeah, I can only get about 6 in there. And I didn't even feel like working on that anymore because it seemed so hopeless. Anyways, this should be a pretty useful machine. I'm just going to demonstrate it one more time, this time really in survival. So you want to make sure that the first soul sand comes up above this hopper. And you don't have to use a hopper. You can use like a normal block or a fence gate even. And also you have to make sure this is right in the center of the end portal frame. So yeah, you make sure it's like that. Then you just come and place soul sand. And you'll be able to tell when it gets up to 12. You can either count it or you can just watch when the soul sand starts getting broken. So now it's done and you want to get away from it while it's exploding. There's 12 that are going to do massive damage. So yeah, I've got a Strength 2 beacon. I don't think that's even necessary. Just the Smite 5 sword and Sweeping Edge 3 is going to do the trick. And this is just so much faster than killing one at a time. That got really annoying for me in my single player because it's really tedious placing down the soul sand and waiting for the explosion and, you know, all that type of stuff. And I'll just do one more quick overview of the thing so you can look at the redstone again. I haven't been changing anything. This half slab here is pretty important. You don't want to use a full block because it lets the signal get through. Or you can rearrange it kind of like this if you don't want to use a half slab. Anyway, that sort of stuff should be pretty obvious. So anyway, thank you for watching and goodbye.